In recent times, one of the most important documents dating back to the Pharaonic era has emerged carrying many surprises for anyone interested in history and the development of civilizations. It is a papyrus whose significance comes from the fact that it was extracted from a tomb that had never been touched before, a papyrus nearly 2,500 years old. Dear viewers, peace be upon you. With us today is Dr. Adam Al-Amir, Professor of Pharaonic History at the Faculty of Arts, Nile University. Dr. Adam is the discoverer of the papyrus, which has been attributed to his name. Welcome, Dr. Adam.
Welcome to you and to your esteemed viewers.
What is the definitive word on the story of the Israelites and their presence in Egypt? Were they enslaved? Were they persecuted? Why were they expelled from Egypt, and who expelled them?
Unfortunately, the story of the Israelites is the greatest example of using prefabricated narratives. When modern Jews looked at the pyramids, they created a great lie and promoted it worldwide using their media machine. Allow me to answer your questions rationally. Were they enslaved? There is nothing in the entire history of Egypt or the history of the Hebrews that confirms that any of the peoples who interacted with the Egyptians, whether in war or political conflict, were ever enslaved. On the contrary, the Egyptians themselves were enslaved when the Hyksos occupied the land of Kemet, Lower Egypt. It is unreasonable for a people who tasted oppression and injustice to inflict it on others. And why would the Egyptians enslave the Hebrews? Was there a shortage of labor? Egypt at that time had 42 provinces filled with people working in all fields. The number of Egyptians exceeded the Hebrews by nearly 50 times, not as American films portray, with 5 Egyptians owning thousands of slaves. Were they persecuted? Yes, but only before their departure from Egypt at the hands of the last king of the 20th dynasty. This was because they held firmly to their religion, while the Pharaoh declared himself a god. We find this in God's words. Indeed, these are but a small band, and indeed they have enraged us. The Pharaoh was angered because they were upon the truth. Why were they expelled from Egypt? Their departure was a divine matter, and historians cannot decisively determine it. But what I can say is that their departure was in their best interest, because religious belief in Egypt had become so corrupted that people of sound nature could no longer coexist with it.
So we can say with full confidence that the Israelites did not build the pyramids?
Of course. This matter has been settled from the beginning. The papyrus we have removes all doubt and clarifies when the pyramids were built. We can say they were built long before the Great Flood. But let us examine the Jewish claim that they built Khufu's pyramid. Khufu ruled Egypt around 2800 BC. If we look at the birth of Prophet Abraham, the grandfather of Prophet Jacob, Israel, we find he was born around 1900 BC. This means Abraham was born 900 years after Khufu. It is impossible for the Israelites to have built the pyramid 900 years before Israel himself was born. But allow me to entertain their claim for the sake of academic debate. Suppose they built the pyramid. Were they merely laborers, while the design and planning were purely Egyptian? If so, they cannot claim ownership, for ownership belongs to the designer, not the builder. And if we suppose they designed, planned, and built it, then why do we not see any of their works elsewhere? Did they build the pyramid and then their genius dried up, producing nothing afterward? Another proof that the Israelites did not build the pyramids is that pyramid construction requires precision and high skill, not physical strength or large numbers. Such skill cannot be extracted from a group of slaves working under coercion. And finally, I ask them, who built the temples? Luxor Temple, Karnak Temple, Dendera Temple, a rare masterpiece across the ages, and the Osirion with its mysterious engineering. If we assume the Israelites built all these wonders, then we are speaking of superhuman beings.
It has been said that the pyramids were industrial structures, yet we find, for example, a stone sarcophagus in the king's chamber. How can the presence of this sarcophagus be reconciled with that theory?
It is one of the assumptions upon which some archaeologists have built many conclusions that stone sarcophagi were used to contain the body of the deceased. Allow me to present an illustrative example of how flawed this assumption is. The Serapeum sarcophagi. This cache contains 24 stone sarcophagi, each 3 meters long, 2.5 meters wide, and 4 meters high, made of red granite, black granite, and diorite, materials of extreme hardness and strength. Each sarcophagus weighs about 90 tons, and its lid 30 tons. The sarcophagi themselves are extraordinary industrial masterpieces. The inner surfaces are astonishingly smooth, and the corners are perfectly square at 90 degrees with no margin of error. They were placed in chambers along a corridor barely wide enough for the sarcophagus itself, with no room for workers to carry or drag it. If we try to assume any theory that these were burial places, we fail. When this cache was discovered, one sarcophagus was still sealed. Workers tried every method to open it and failed. The discoverer, Auguste Mariette, decided to blow off part of the lid to reveal what was inside. He found nothing. The sarcophagus was empty. But how could they announce to the world that they had blown up a historical artifact only to find nothing? So the story of the worship of the Apis bull was invented, claiming the bull was mummified and placed in these scientifically and structurally extraordinary sarcophagi. But has anyone considered that these sarcophagi, in their form and arrangement within the tunnels, were part of a giant industrial machine, and that precision in shaping their interiors was necessary? This applies to every granite sarcophagus found in any pyramid. Has anyone considered that the presence of granite in such locations was for a technical purpose related to an industrial function?